This is the Hive Helper in an enclosure I created for it. In it is a Xiao ESP32C3 and a WeAct ePaper screen. At the moment, I have a fire detection and a noxious gas. Well, I guess multiple different types of gas inputs here. Ethanol, and I'll go into the rest in a moment. As you can see here, when it first loads, you see the weekly forecast, and it's getting this from Home Assistant. In addition to that, it has the outdoor for today, temperature, and humidity, and the time. It updates every minute. In addition to that, well, you can see an update right now. And I have it doing a full update versus a partial update, as there's a bug with the existing library for the ePaper screen, but I can take a look at that in the future. You can see today was partly cloudy. If you push the button here, it switches to the local version, where it has the room temperature and the room humidity, and it has the attached NO2, carbon monoxide, and VOCs and ethanol being listed, and that's from this device here. And I did that as a demo, just to show that you could put your own additional sensors here. It's 11:14 now. And I could switch back, or I guess 11:15, it hadn't updated. But you'll see if I switch back over here, it's now showing that. Yeah, so that's this. You can use these additional growth ports for 2 I2C and 1 additional UART. In this case, I'm just using it for the flame alert. And I'll be showing on the Home Assistant side momentarily how it can alert for that, plus include all the additional sensor data. Thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring the PCB used in this video. Carbon monoxide, as this sensor checks for that. In addition, you can see ethanol, the humidity and temperature coming from the onboard temperature sensor and humidity sensor, and the NO2 and VOC ppms. And this is updated based on a schedule I set with ESPHome. Now, as you can see on the side screen here, I have a lighter and this associated Groove fire detection IR light thing. Either way, you'll see it change as soon as I light it up right about now. And as you can see, it triggers the flame when it's in front of it. And I can calibrate it further on that end. You can see the little green light appeared, which in turn shows if there's a fire. So if there was a fire in your environment, you'd be able to use something like this with the ESPHome to know immediately and have an automation based on it, perhaps sending you an immediate alert, triggering additional notifications, something along those lines. One added level of precaution, and just to make sure I don't waste electronics, I went and tested the pinout that I have set up here for the board on this ePaper display, and it worked properly. So now I'm going to attach it, get all the different components hooked up, and then further test. I have the parts, and I'll begin soldering. The board mostly soldered except for the ePaper display. I have the ESP32C3 attached, the AHT21. I still need to clean it up. There's a lot of random solder there. The solder balls. I don't have a stencil, so I do the best I can with a syringe. But I'll be cleaning it up after. Yeah, so just the ePaper display left and then testing. To describe some of the testing I did, I checked SDA and CL to make sure there were no shorts under them, assuming the AHT21 is correctly set up there. In addition to that, I confirmed that there were no shorts between any of the pins on the Xiao here. So now it looks pretty good. I guess I'll test to make sure each of the lines, or the wires rather, are correctly connected to these pins here. I guess, it's fine. When I attach these temporary nuts for the standoffs here, just to keep it in place while I solder, and I'm going to use my soldering iron versus the hot air for the remainder of this, just soldering these 8 pins. Angular cutters to cut off the rest of the leads, but it's soldered on there. So now it's just a matter of turning it on and making sure it works. And then I have to add some logic for the button, the temperature sensor and whatnot. But I'm excited. If all goes well, my demo code should appear here, a demo message from me that I'll need to update once I have the code for the entire board ready. Let's give it a shot. Hive Helper. I need to figure out how to flip the screen so that it works like this, but that's great. Looks like it's working at least. And I already confirmed SDA and SCL are in the right spots and everything. So the AHT20, assuming I didn't mess up the solder there, should work as well. We'll see. I'm going to unplug this for now and figure out how to flip it. Into the case, I've placed these 4 screws in here initially to hold down the washers to make sure they don't leave until it's ready. And I'm just going to place it directly into the enclosure, making sure that they all fall into their holes. You can see here that all 4 are visible, which is great. So now I'm going to use a longer screw and push it through. Unfortunately, I didn't take a video at the time, but I used these 4 heat inserts that I picked up from ePaper to make the connection a lot more stable. So I just put them into the holes that I have in the 3D print and then push down with my soldering iron on them to get them into place. And that pretty much was the extent of the setup. Just 4 20mm M3 screws holding it directly to the device. Here I am in the Home Assistant file editor. I have opened the configuration.yaml file, and I had to add a template of the weather get forecast service in order to have the information available to the ESPHome device. As you see here, I have it set as a time pattern. It updates every hour, and initially during testing I had this set to minutes to make it a lot easier, and I switched it back to hours after. I get the forecast from the service weather.getForecasts. I store it in the weather.forecast_home entity, and it's set up to give me the weather data daily. As you can see here, I then parse the condition, humidity, temperature, precipitation, etc. out for the 5 days. And I'll show more of that in a moment. Here's the developer tools, testing the service for get forecasts, and I can call it, and you can see this is the data that I parsed in that template. So you could figure out if you wanted to get additional data like the wind bearing or the precipitation chance. Because some of these days where it says it's raining, it's not very high. You might want to filter that out and change it as needed. But that's all available here. And you can pass that to your device. It's worth remembering that in order to use the services from Home Assistant on the ESPHome device, you need to first configure and allow the device to perform Home Assistant actions. And from there, you're pretty much set up. You just work from that point forward. So here I'm going to quickly go over the ESPHome configuration. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I just want to cover some basic parts. I have the name set up, ESP32C3 set up here, and I'm using the Xiao ESP32C3, but there isn't a custom board for that. In this case, I'm just directly using it. I have the source set up for the external component for the Grove Multi-Gas Sensor V2 that I'm referencing and using. I2C is set up here. I have pin 20, GPIO 20, which is RX on the device, I believe, set up as a flame alert sensor. It's just using a signal pin on that. In addition, I have the button set up such that it cycles through the display and updates the display when that happens. The Home Assistant logic here are sensors that I had previously set up in this video, as you can refer back to, and that just fetches it here as a text sensor. I also have multiple of them set up as just regular sensors down below here. In terms of the other things, I'm logging every 10 seconds. I have the Grove Multi-Gas V2 sensor logging their data, and every 60 seconds the HT21 logging. And this is just the configuration you have to use for that. I have some fonts set up, and in addition to that, I have these weather-related glyphs that weather-related icons rather, that can be referenced for showing those images on the screen. And thank you to the Weatherman reference here, and they had already previously thanked this other project just for providing the information of how to do this very easily. I didn't have to do much legwork to get that running. I have SPI set up. I have the time platform setup from Home Assistant so that it updates that. And then here I'm using the WaveShare ePaper with the 2.9 inch V2 here for updating the display. And again, when you do partial updates, it can get into a bad state with the current driver here. So I'm doing full updates each time, and I'm updating every 60 seconds by default. Sometimes it'll update more if you click the button, but by default it's only once every 60 seconds. I'm rotating it upside down here through the 270 degrees rotation. And I just have a bunch of pins set up for the different elements, the different pins that are used for this, running this board. Now here is the logic that actually displays the information. I gathered the time and incremented each day just such that I can have the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday sort of labels there, as you can see on the device previously. I also have that mapping here, thanks to that other user, as I mentioned before, of the weather icons, the weather that's reported in Home Assistant to the icons for the glyphs, which make getting it set up and running very, very quick. And this just took some trial and error to get the right positioning on the device, but this is all just taking that information that I gathered from Home Assistant from their service, weather service, and outputting it onto the device. And on page 2, it's very similar. I have the time, and then I have these additional sensors here for my connected 4-channel gas sensor to display that, and also the onboard HC21's temperature and humidity. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you subscribe and enjoy more videos.